Hi guys, welcome to the Comic Book Syndicate. This is the big season finale, and to celebrate, we're going to review our favorite superhero movie of the year, possibly, Wonder Woman 1984. Joining me, as always, is G.I.Jolie and Bex Luthor. Hi guys.
Yo.
Hi.
Unfortunately, we couldn't be sitting in the same room, partly because of COVID, partly because we live in 3 different cities now.
Yeah, but you wouldn't even know because it's COVID, so we can't even see each other anyway.
Right. But we're showing our dedication by sticking to doing what we do best, which is reviewing comic books and comic book movies. And we're going to talk about one that people have been whining about and complaining about. But I watched it the day after Christmas, and I loved this movie. There are flaws. There are tons of flaws, actually. But overall, I love the spirit of it. I love the tone, I love the structure, I love the characters. I went into this, I watched this movie a couple days after it premiered, and I started to see all these vicious reactions from friends of mine and from online reviewers. And so I went in thinking, oh my god, this is going to be like Suicide Squad or Justice League level hodgepodge of different things just all thrown together. No, I thought it was perfectly coherent. I mean, you could watch the film and like the opening scene with Diana going through that obstacle course. You could say, well, okay, they could have cut that. They could have started the movie with her in the mall rescuing, the girl, blah blah blah, whatever. But the point is that once the story started, once they found that artifact, I really like the fact that it wasn't just a slam bang action film. You were following Diana at work. You were following Barbara. You were following their characters. You were following the mystery of this object. And then the story builds slowly over time. They reintroduce Steve. And I thought they developed Barbara's arc perfectly. I thought they developed Maxwell Lord's arc perfectly. You could argue that the ending of the film, I wish the stakes were a little bit lower. Like maybe if instead of everyone in the world getting a wish, maybe it was just everyone in that one city. That would have been a little bit better. But other than that, and like a few far-fetched things which we'll get into later, I was totally satisfied with the story, with the arc of the characters, with the climax of the story, with the underlying message of the story, I guess you could say. So I have no idea what everyone was complaining about because I love this movie. Becca, you haven't really said much so far, so what was your initial reaction?
It's weird because you liked the movie and it was okay. Like, I think the big problem with like nerds in nerd culture and everything is either everything is amazing or everything is terrible, and there's no in between. And that's not how media works. Things can be not perfect and still not be bad. So like 6s out of 10, that's fine. It's fine to be a 6 out of 10. I'm a 6 out of 10 and I'm making it for work. Like, it's fine. So yeah, there was definitely some parts of this movie where it was not the best decision, but also I'm a fan of the DC Extended Universe. I can get over the plot holes. Like, I don't care as long as it's fun to watch, and that's kind of like my big thing. And the movie was fun to watch most of the time. I don't know. Yeah, it was okay. Me and my partner were watching it together, and every so often he would be like, why? And I'm like, it's fine, don't worry about it.
Here's the thing is that I agree with what you said, because I posted something recently where I said, if this is the way nerd culture works, but I didn't say that, I said blockbuster culture. I said if a movie is a 7 out of 10, everyone says it's the greatest movie ever made. If it's a 6.9 out of 10, everyone says it's the worst movie ever made, and if you like it, you're an idiot. And that's basically how all these things work, right? Like, I'm able to see like Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage and purchase it on Blu-ray because I see the strengths in that film. But I'm also able to see like Dark Knight, which is my favorite superhero movie, and I can see all of the flaws in that film. There's tons of them. And I don't understand why, like you said, there's no nuance. Everything's polarized now, where it's almost like day one, a movie comes out and everyone picks one side, and if you're on the wrong side, you're a complete idiot. There's something wrong with you. But anyway, before we go forward, Jolie, I want to know your initial reaction to watching this film. I think you saw it before I did, right? You saw it on Christmas Day?
When I watched it, it was kind of, I had to watch it a second time. But I found myself from the from the start to right about the time where Maxwell becomes the Stone, really enjoying the film. I was shocked at how good it was. And then it kind of became like fantastical, like in a strange way, but in a way that it wasn't terrible, but I kind of rolled my eyes a couple times. I was like, okay, this is what it looks like when you put comic book plots in a live action film. But okay. The two things that kind of triggered that response were Wonder Woman creating her invisible jet. That was like,
yeah,
kind of, I was like, wait. This wasn't like a date trick. Like, it shouldn't have been like a date trick, even though it was kind of like, it was cute. It was just kind of like, oh, I forgot about radar. We're going to be seen. Ooh, there's this thing my father used to do. It's like, that was never set up at all.
No, at least if it was set up, they could have pulled it off, but it wasn't. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, I think I can, it worked. There you go. Now I have an invisible plane. Yeah, that was bad.
And it was never...
It was a shame.
Yeah, they didn't set that up at all. It's like, you know your father? You knew he could do that? He made the mascara invisible? Wait a second. Okay. The second one, and everyone's going to think I'm going to say it's the flying. It wasn't even the flying or the falling with style as I interpret that, because that's what it was. She was not flying. It was the power of the wish. Like when he was in that big wish generator at the White House compound where they have the, where they're keeping that big secret
TV station
broadcast thing. Yeah, that TV station that reaches the entire world. That was the part that kind of was like, oh, what? It was too grand. It was way too high stakes to the point where it was unbelievable.
Well, here's the thing. For me, first of all, I don't think Wonder Woman should fly because she has an invisible jet. She doesn't need to fly. She doesn't need to be like Superman, right? The fact that she was lassoing lightning and lassoing clouds was preposterous.
That was dope as hell, though.
That was what?
It was super dope. Like, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I was like, yeah, obviously she does that. That's rad.
That was fine.
That's what I mean, is like, at first I was like, oh, come on. But then I was like, who cares? Who gives it? You know what? I don't care. I'm fine with it. I mean, there was a couple problems in the plotting where, like, I could see that they were trying to go, like, when Cheetah sees the same guy that tried to assault her earlier and then he beats the crap out of her, I was like, okay, that scene didn't turn out as good as they wanted it to. There's a couple times where that happened, where I could see where they were trying to go. But here's the thing, though, is that I could also see that this movie was clearly using Richard Donner's Superman and Superman 2 as a template, right? Just like the first one did. This one, you could follow it along and go, okay, that's Superman 2. Like, there was, the bully in the bar in Superman 2 going back to the bully. Now it's the guy in Central Park or whatever it was, And, of course, I can't remember any of the other parallels, but there was definitely a few moments where I was like, that's Superman 2. That's Superman 2. Even Maxwell Lord's character was very much like Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, right? So, if you're going to copy from the best. And then just the fact that Wonder Woman, Diana, she had to accept the fact that Steve Trevor was dead, and it's not right to have him back, and it's not right to steal this other guy's life. And let me just say, I don't want to spoil anything, but if you haven't seen the movie, stop watching. But if you have seen the movie, can I just say that the moment where Diana says goodbye to Chris Pine, Steve Trevor, and then she kisses him, and then she just cuts it off and starts running away, and the camera holds in one shot, it's the best moment in the entire movie. I thought it was excellent. Becca, what did you think of that scene?
I cried. I'm a big baby. I cried. It was beautiful. They did that. That's one of the things, like, in the movie, there's a lot of times where it's like, that's awkward, and then there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, that was done really, really, really well. When she just kisses him, turns the corner and leaves, and that's it. You don't see him magically turn back into the other guy. You don't see her like have a long goodbye. It's just one kiss and then she's gone, and then she has to go do what she has to do. And that like shot there was so pretty. I cried. I'm a big baby. I cried. It was beautiful.
Jolie, what was your take on that scene?
That was the 5th time I cried watching the film because I cried all throughout the film because I love Wonder Woman. Yeah, same with me. I honestly, it was so well done. People are up in arms about the idea that Chris Pine's character, that Steve Trevor, comes back in the body of a stranger. Of like his soul inhabits a whole nother person, and the whole idea of like he's not consenting to this, and you know, Wonder Woman sees Steven even though she also sees the stranger who lives next door in her building. Yeah, it's a little bit strange, but I wanted just to say to the man who wrote the article, who is really preoccupied with it, welcome to the world of women, where our bodies are used in film like this all the time and no one gripes, because he also did mention if the tables were turned, that there'd be a bigger issue than this. I was like, no, there wouldn't be. No one. Women would take umbrage with it, and then it would get ignored. That's what would happen, and exactly what is happening now. And he's like, more people should be talking about this. More people should be taking issue with this. And it's like, no, because it's been happening. It happened. They could have I agree that they could have been handled better. As in, it's a wishing stone. Why couldn't Steve Trevor just come back? He didn't have to inhabit anyone's body.
So then you agree that he shouldn't have occupied someone else's body. He should have just came back.
I disagree that there should be this much controversy about it. It's something to me that would happen in a comic, because didn't they do that to Jean Grey? Her body was used a lot in the Dark Phoenix saga, like the comics. So it's
same with Psylocke too. She switches bodies with an assassin, and then their minds are swapped, but they are treated like not. So that's very common.
Yeah, so it's like it's been happening to women's bodies. Something that's happening to a man's body in this film has been happening to women's bodies in film and in comics, and we're supposed to all be up in arms about it. And I can't say that we should be. I can say that sure, it's a little bit strange, and it could have been handled differently, but I don't agree with the people who are just tossing this out with the bathwater because of just that. They're preoccupied with just that plot device. It's a little insane.
It's strange that it's not strange at all, but like, you have a very woman-centric movie. It's literally Wonder Woman. She's the main character. There's strong female friendships in the movie. It's directed by a woman. And you have men who are looking for anything to attack about that movie. And it's like, you guys, men have been making bad movies for a long time. It's not just, it has nothing to do with gender. So it just, they want anything to tear apart. Be like, oh, the feminists aren't up in arms about the sexual assault in this movie. And it's like, well, one, I don't, like, even if the tables were turned, I still wouldn't consider it sexual assault, because it's like, it's magic. It's not this person, it's this person now. You could almost just say, instead of their bodies swapping, like, that guy was just teleported out of existence and Steve Trevor was plunked in his place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guarantee you that guy had no issue with Kristen Wiig's character almost getting sexually assaulted, though, which is such a common trope, and I was almost a little upset that it was also in this movie too. Like, oh, you got to show a woman's strength, you have to knock her down, kind of thing. I was like I understand that it's trying to show like Diana's a good friend and blah 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 blah, but it's like such an easy way out is to be like, oh, woman almost gets sexually assaulted. But I guarantee you that guy who had a problem with Steve Trevor did not mention that at all.
No,
so.
And then the whole idea that she, in order to save herself, she loses her humanity. It's like, come on.
Yeah, it's such a tropey thing.
That? Yeah. Anyway, so that's our feminist perspective. I don't know what people. I honestly do not subscribe to the same notion that Gal Gadot is wooden as an actress. If you want to see wooden acting, you should watch her in the Fast and Furious series.
I don't blame her for that, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, it wasn't her fault. And I just don't see it. And then the people who... Okay, so I cried then. And then I cried when her and Barbara became better friends. And I cried when she was little Wonder Woman and she was kicking butt during the big competition. And then, inevitably, was torn out of winning from her aunt. My God.
For cheating. You can't be cheating, little Diana.
You can't be. You know what? Technically, she cheated from the start when she didn't go through that first hoop and she just dove. Technically, she didn't actually finish, and it wouldn't have mattered because they just just don't reward her with just don't give her the prize. Let her finish though. Jesus. Anyway, I cried harder when I could hear her when she said, "I renounce my wish." And then you could hear his, or maybe before that, you could hear his voice, and he's like, "I'll always find you." I'm like, oh, it was so good.
That's what I think the issue is for me, is that this movie has many flaws, but it has an underlying story. Just like many superhero films that I like that are heavily flawed. To me, as long as the underlying story is good, that's why I go along with it. We've touched on Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Let's talk about Chris Pine returning as Steve Trevor. I think Chris Pine is always good. He's always been a great actor. He brings a spontaneity to this role. I thought he was great. Becca, what'd you think of Chris Pine?
I loved him in this movie because he's so confident in the first one, right? Because he's in his element, like war, flying. That's Steve Trevor. And now he's completely removed from that. And he is now, there's this scene, I forget what exactly was going on, but it's the parallel to the first movie where Diana tastes the ice cream for the first time. And she gets that, childlike wonder. And then you have, her showing Steve Trevor all these amazing future things. And he has that same, where now he has no idea about this new fancy world. And it was just really nice to see that. Because Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman, you don't think that they should work as a couple. And they really, really do. Because Wonder Woman is obviously, this amazing goddess. And she's brilliant. And it's nobody could ever deserve her. But Steve Trevor somehow does. I don't know. It's just nice. And Gal Gadot and Chris Pine work really well together. I feel like it's probably very easy to work with Chris Pine as a love interest because he's dreamy. So, and I mean, it's probably also equally as easy to work with Gal Gadot. It'd be oh, I have to pretend to be in love with you? No problem. Look at her. Yeah. She's the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your entire life. So I just really like that dynamic. I think that's what the movie does really, really well, is maybe the plot's a little whatever, Dreamstone, whatever, MacGuffin plot device item, but the characters and the character development and the character interactions are the best part of this movie. For sure.
Oh, yeah. Chris Pine is just so likable. And the one thing that really bothered me about his character in the first film was that Wonder Woman had to prove her mettle to him, and in this film he already knew she was capable, that she was brave, that she was strong, so he fought with her, not in front of her, looking over his shoulder to see if she could catch up. And that was a really nice touch for this film. So yeah, it was just nice to see him fight with her instead of moderately against her and trying you know what I mean? He seemed to be babysitting her in the first film. No matter what they did, she had flown out of a trench and right into fire, but he was still "No, Diana, I'll protect you." And in this film, there was none of that. It was just fighting side by side was awesome. I didn't even consider it until now that none of that happened. So
it was a very equal partnership.
No, and the thing is, in the comics, nobody knows what to do with Steve Trevor. I didn't realize this, but he's been killed off 5 times. Killed off, brought back, killed off. They erased Diana's memory so she forgets he knew him. Then they get married, then they erase the marriage. Clearly no one knows what to do with Steve Trevor, and it's because of the power imbalance, the fact that he's the man, but she's the goddess, more powerful. She doesn't need him, right? So it is really hard to figure him out, but the first movie did it, right? They figured out how to make them work, and I think that continues in this film for sure. So let's go to Let's jump now to Maxwell Lord, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, Space Daddy.
From Mandalorian, we've only seen him with his mask off twice, I think, but he's obviously a great actor in Mandalorian. Some people complained he was over the top here. I didn't see it. I thought he was excellent. You know, he was playing a huckster, salesman, business person type. So what's the problem? I thought he was a great... And again, this movie, getting back to Superman 2 had Lex Luthor and it had the Phantom Zone villains. Batman Returns had Penguin and Catwoman and it had Max Schreck. To me, this guy's like the Max Schreck character. You could argue in Batman Returns, Max Schreck wasn't necessary, but in this movie, he was crucial because he was really the bad guy, and Cheetah was kind of in the middle, but they both had a good side to them, which I really liked. We'll get to Cheetah in a minute, but I thought Pedro Pascal was excellent. Becca, what did you think?
Oh yeah, if you needed... I didn't realize that he would be so completely the opposite of his obviously his Mandalorian character, but like he was the personification of like a 3 a.m. used car dealership ad. Like that's the vibes I was getting from him, and it like worked really well. And through the course of the movie, obviously as he's deteriorating more from the Dreamstone and using it, he's slowly getting like crazier and crazier, and it's like noticeable in a very, while over the top but still kind of subtle way. Like yeah, he's still like kind of an over the top kind of guy, but we all kind of know that guy, right? He's annoying and he's always telling you about his next entrepreneurship job and you don't care. Oh my god, shut up. Like that's this guy. So and he did it really well. You can't ignore him when he's in a scene. Like that's the point, right? So he's just takes up the whole screen when he's on camera. There was like the part when they're like driving and like trucks and stuff and they're shooting at Diana and she just like comes up and like punches like the windshield and he's just like he makes this funny face and it just stuck with me. I was like, what a cartoon character, what a comic book bad guy. And that's kind of one of the things about the movie that worked really well in parts and then didn't, is sometimes it's very comic booky and it's great, and sometimes it's very comic booky and it's not so great. But Pedro Pascal, 10 out of 10. Really good bad guy. Really interesting bad guy. Well, not really being... Like, this movie, there was 2 antagonists that didn't end up being... Like, yeah, he did some bad stuff, but were they bad people? I don't know. That makes interesting bad guys to me is not just like, I'm evil. Like there's more to people than that, right? And like Maxwell Lord, who has a son in this one. Does Maxwell Lord have a kid?
Not when I read him. I read Maxwell Lord in the 80s in Justice League International. He didn't have a kid then, but maybe he does now. I'm not sure. But I like the fact that they added that. That was a great Achilles heel for his character, right?
It was like the Hawkeye effect, but it worked in this one, whereas it didn't really work in Age of Ultron, where you give the character a family, and suddenly all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's motivation, and that's motivation that I can understand, instead of just like, I'm evil and I want money. Like, it's like, no, I want a better life for my son, and in that process, I'm losing myself. So
yeah, and it was funny too because he wasn't like your normal, typical like billionaire a-hole dad. He actually cared about his son. Like, he would stop and pay attention to him, or it became the reason why he saved him. He was able to save himself and renounce his wish, because he cared more about his family. So he wasn't like super evil villainy. And excuse me, neither was Barbara. And that's what I liked about this, about the characters in this film, is that the characters had so much depth. They thought about the things that drove them to do what they did, and it was complex, the things that drove them to do what they did. He isn't just a one-dimensional bad guy, even though on the surface when they first introduce him he seems as though he should be, but honestly he has a father that he's trying to please. He has a son that he's trying to provide for. He has his own like aspirations for himself that he's trying to like validate, and that's what makes his character so good. And Pedro Pascal is like a freaking chameleon. Like, he went from, Stone Cold King in Game of Thrones, and he was like a co-ed vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Space Daddy, and then now he's you know, I barely recognized him in that like golden blonde wig, but he was phenomenal. And that character, I was disappointed that when I first read that Maxwell Lord was going to be a character in Wonder Woman, I looked up Maxwell Lord and was like, really? This is going to be the character that fights Wonder Woman? Okay, this is going to be a great film. And then, but they wrote so much depth, and it like the depth of the character also involved the plot of the film, wouldn't you know? And like that's what made that's what I think what people are missing. They'd rather fight about how stupid his suits look, or like how right or wrong he is as an actor for the character. It's like, who cares? Did you watch the same film as us?
Becca didn't. But anyway, okay, so here's the thing. I also got to point out, for those who don't remember, Maxwell Lord was also in the Supergirl TV show, played by Peter Facinelli.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was cute.
Yeah, he plays Daddy Cullen in Twilight.
Okay.
That
guy was good too. He's a good actor. He was fine in that movie, but obviously this is a different version of Maxwell Lord, and Pedro Pascal is a little more over the top. But yeah, I definitely thought he was fine. But now let's talk about possibly my favorite new character in this movie, Kristen Wiig as the Cheetah. I'm a huge fan of Kristen Wiig. When I first joined Facebook in 2007, one of the first things I did was create a photo album of my favorite Kristen Wiig photos. But anyway, that's beside the point. I always thought she was funny on Saturday Night Live. I thought she was great in Ghostbusters. And she was great in this movie. I know that some people might think that her character, like the way she was talking at the beginning, with like the, like the way she kind of mumbles and what's that called when you like, she just kind of drops like these jokes, these subtle jokes in between lines. People might not like that. I thought it was hilarious. And then the fact that she could transform into the cheetah, I thought she did a great job of that, because Kristen Wiig is cute. I think she's attractive. You know what I mean? So she was able to pull off both versions of the character. And so I thought she was perfect, especially because that's sort of what the character's like in the comic books. So it's hard to find someone that can fit both of those roles. So I thought she was great. I had no issues with her makeup as it evolved. I have no issues with the way she looked at the end of the film. So I thought she was fine. Becca, what did you think?
Oh, yeah, no. Definitely the best part of this movie for sure is Cheetah. And I'm a big fan of Cheetah in the comics, and I love her relationship with Wonder Woman, and Cheetah's had so many different retcons and origin stories. I think the one that's going on right now was that it was like a plant god gave her the powers, and like she doesn't, like, she's not evil. Like, that's the thing with Cheetah, is she oftentimes is Wonder Woman's friend and good friend and trusted friend, and then she gets corrupted by this god and becomes the Cheetah in the comics, and sometimes she can't control her bloodlust, and sometimes she fights Wonder Woman, and sometimes she tries to kill Wonder Woman, but at the end of the day, her and Barbara are still friends, and that's like the big conflict between them. And that worked really well in this movie. Just them sitting and having dinner and joking around. I was like, oh, I do that with my friends. Like, that's so... And it was so strange to see in a superhero movie was just two girls having dinner and not talking about boys. It was great. Because, like, we just don't sit and talk about boys all the time. We don't... Like, who cares about boys? I want to talk about archaeology. I want to talk about the things that I'm interested in. It was really great, and they did it so quickly too, where it's like, oh, obviously Diana's nice to this woman, and obviously this woman wants to be friends with her, and it just worked really well. And all of the people who were saying, like, I was reading about people saying that her character was annoying initially, and I'm like, her character was every nerdy person that I went to high school with. Like, yeah, you're annoying too, guys. Like, that's us. That's us. Like, we don't shut up, we mumble, nobody likes us, and we're weird. Like, that's exactly how all of these people in the comments are, she's not hot enough to beat Cheetah. Excuse you. You wish you could see Kristen Wiig in a skin-tight dress. I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about Cheetah, and I really liked that she did get her redemption. The biggest thing for me is, like, I don't really like the scene when she, like, it's like her turning point scene when she's beating up the guy who almost sexually assaulted her, and it's like, oh, she went too far. It's like, nah, kill him. Not worth it. But yeah, loved her, loved the look. Absolutely loved the Cheetah. Like, the that they went with this newer kind of version of Cheetah, because, like, originally she's like in basically a skin-tight fursuit with like giant boobs and like a big orange wig, and now in the comics she's actually more like an anthropomorphized cheetah, and I like that they went with this one, with that one. It works really well. I just wish the final fight scene wasn't so dark.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know what they were thinking there. I mean, the first Wonder Woman did a good job of brightening up the color palette, right? Just to kind of differentiate it from the Zack Snyder DC films. But this film, in that scene at least, was really dark, and I didn't like that at all. I don't know why they did that.
And it was the only scene that they did that in.
Yeah, it was weird. You're right. Maybe it was to cover up.
Much CGI.
Yeah, sometimes the CGI, it's better, in their view, to make it darker, to cover up some of the phoniness of it. I mean, I know that apparently Patty Jenkins said that Warner Brothers forced her to add in a lot of CGI in the first movie at the climax. So maybe that's what happened here. I have no idea. But overall, I don't think that they exploited the 1980s nostalgia enough. Like, you know, they're in the shopping mall and Chris Pine is doing that wardrobe scene with all the neon colors and the workout gear and like the little, whatever, that little fanny pack, whatever it's called. That stuff was funny, but I would have liked to have seen more 80s aesthetic, you know, like more bright colors, more neon, more 80s music. Why not? If you're going to set it in 1984, you might as well have Duran Duran in there somewhere, right? Why not?
They were like, we don't want to be in this movie.
Yeah, they really missed the ball when they didn't give Cheetah a White Snake theme.
Right.
I think I had read maybe a Forbes article, and the reviewer was like, Kristen Wiig was a mistake. Or like, there's a bunch of people on Reddit who are like, Kristen Wiig is too, she's only a comedic actress. It doesn't make sense that you would cast her in this role. I'm like, she was done SNL in 2012 and has they're like, she doesn't have any dramatic experience. They're comparing her to like Robin Williams. So I was like, hey jerks, did you know that after she was done SNL, aka after you were done with her, she did like a whole bunch of movies that were only dramas, that were indie films, that like she was fabulous in. Apparently no one saw The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Did you like her actual look as the cheetah?
I didn't mind that. There was one part where during the boss fight that's in the dark that you guys were talking about, where you can see a close-up of the prosthetic of her nose, and I was like, no, that's cool. She looks like a cat. Like, it almost doesn't look like Kristen Wiig, but hey, if Kristen Wiig were to turn into a giant cheetah, that's probably what that would look like. The thing I'm confused about, though, is I didn't know that you could wish more than once.
People have addressed that. Apparently there's a huge online explanation for how she got 2 wishes that I haven't read. But I'm just going to go with it and say they probably figured it out. But
maybe when she was talking to Maxwell in that private jet, when she was like, well, I don't want to be like anybody else anymore. Like, maybe at some point she said, I renounce that. Like, that was taken as a renunciation. But, like, I think you actually have to be like, I renounce my wish.
Yeah, I just thought it was because the first wish she made was with the stone, and then the second wish she made was with Maxwell Lord, who is now the stone. So it was like, he can just do whatever he wants now because he's Maxwell Lord. Like, he's the stone. The stone's now is a person, so he can just do whatever he wants. Also, it's a Wonder Woman movie, so like in the comics for Wonder Woman, there's like 400 different MacGuffin plot device, archaeological finds, stones, rocks, tiaras, like a whole bunch of stuff, and they just do whatever. Like that's kind of what happens in Wonder Woman. Is there's lots of like ancient artifact things, and they do stuff, and then the plot happens. Like so, it didn't bother me really, because like that's just kind of how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Like Superman punches Guy. Wonder Woman finds Thing and turns Guy into a weird thing and then fights that guy. Like, that's just what happens.
Yeah. So my thoughts are, I honestly, from the beginning, I love all these characters. I love what they did with these characters. I love what they did with the plot and these characters. Anyway, I'm gonna cry.
The thing is, okay, I guess we can wrap up by comparing this to other DC films. I think this is still one of the better ones. I mean, I think if Wonder Woman 2017 is the best DC film, this could be the second or third best. I mean, there haven't been that many great ones, but I think it was better than most, except for maybe Shazam, which I had mixed feelings about, but I think it's better than Justice League, better than Man of Steel, better than Batman vs. Superman, better than Suicide Squad, that's for sure. Birds of Prey, I didn't even remember that film, even though it was this year. So, as far as Marvel films, you know, DC and Marvel have got a completely different aesthetic going. Warner Brothers lets the directors do whatever they want, and therefore there's huge highs and huge lows. Marvel is kind of more all in the middle. Everything's kind of around the same level. And there's some that are great and some that are not as great, but overall they're more consistent. But I kind of like the fact that with DC, in 1 year, you can have a movie like The Joker and Shazam, and there's both DC, and they have nothing to do with each other. And that's what I like about DC. So, Becca, where do you rate this film compared to other DC films?
Yeah, it's probably like up there. Like probably right under the first Wonder Woman, and maybe tied with Shazam somewhere in between there too, because I really, really liked Shazam. It's definitely better than Aquaman. As far as like movies go, I probably enjoyed Justice League because it's just such a garbage fest of like ridiculousness, but like that's kind of my oeuvre. And what I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it a lot. There's like parts of the movie like that everyone's complaining about, like the invisible jet, which doesn't bother me as much because I don't know if anyone actually reads comic books that watches comic book movies, because the invisible jet in like the comics, there's like pre-crisis and post-crisis, right? So in pre-crisis, she just makes the invisible jet. Like Hippolyta has planes, she just makes it invisible. So like that is pretty much canon. And then in post-crisis, the invisible jet is an alien. So, like, they didn't pick that one. They didn't go with that one. They went with she makes the plane. And that's the better one. So, I mean, it was an enjoyable movie. Everyone who's complaining about it needs to read more comic books.
There you go. Okay, Jolie, what do you think? What do you rate it compared to the other ones?
So if we're just doing DC, then I would have to say that Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey comes first, and then Wonder Woman, and then Wonder Woman 1984. So number 3.
So overall, I think this movie, again, if I didn't hear anyone else complain about it, yes, there would be a few issues, but overall I loved it. And this goes back to my theory that if a film is 7 out of 10, people consider it a masterpiece. If it's a 6.9, everyone tears it to shreds. There's different reasons people are picking apart this film, and I think it has to do with the fact that it's a female director, a female co-writer, a female star. They're ready to tear it to shreds, but those same people are going to put, whatever the latest male-dominated superhero film up on a pedestal and say that's the greatest film ever made. Whatever, that's fine. Again, it's not perfect, but I definitely enjoyed it. I am going to watch it again, so I recommend it. Becca, what about you?
Oh yeah, I'll probably watch it again. I mean, I could watch it whenever I want in my house, so I will watch it again. It was nice to watch a brand new blockbuster movie in my bed. But yeah, I'm gonna watch. Literally every movie that I've ever liked, people tear apart on the internet, so this is not anything new for me. And also, if people just, I think people need to relax a little bit. There are a lot of problems with the world right now, and Wonder Woman 1984 is not even close to as anything remotely relevant to that. So maybe we should all just shut up and put our masks over our nose and watch Wonder Woman. That's my review. I want to leave my house. Let me leave my house. God.
So Jolie, what's your final word?
100% agree with Becca. I just want to watch this. I wish I could have watched this blockbuster in a movie theater and not the confines of my home and my 62-inch television and sound system. But honestly, I liked hearing my own chewing and not 5 other people chewing popcorn. So that was fine. I've already watched this movie like 5 times. I will watch it 5 more times.
All right, so hopefully the next time we do a movie review, it will be after seeing it at the theater. But if not, that's okay because we're still going to do the review, right? So we want to thank you guys for joining us for the season finale of the Comic Book Syndicate season 14. So we'll be starting up 15 soon. I don't know what the first movie's going to be. I haven't checked the schedule. Everything's been moved around. We'll see. But whatever it is, you'll be sure to see us there. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Compared to all the other like DC Comics films, this one comes in second to Blade from 1998. Blade will always be my favorite.
That's Marvel though.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Is he Marvel?
Yeah, he's a vampire slayer. He kills Dracula. Deadpool fights him.
Oh, do we have to keep it Marvel DC? Okay, fine.